WBZ-TV, Boston's original TV station.
Eyewitness News, Wednesday, February 8th, with Jack Williams, Maurice Lewis, and the Eyewitness News team.
New Englanders are stepping up their effort to dig out the record blizzard. Federal troops are now arriving at Logan Airport to assist with a massive cleanup project.
A suspect is in custody for the hillside stranglings in Los Angeles. And in Washington, the U.S. Senate debate begins on the Panama Canal treaties.
Good evening. I'm Jack Williams.
And I'm Maurice Lewis for Tony Pepper, who has the evening off. We'll be back with complete details from Eyewitness News next.
TWA introduces round-trip check-in. Now on TWA, you can check in once and fly twice.
When you pick up your outbound boarding pass, you can get your return trip boarding pass at the same time. So on the way back, you don't have to wait in line to check in again.
Great. That's one less line in my life.
Round-trip check-in, only on TWA. Check in once, fly twice.
Annette Funicello. Now there's a name you haven't heard for a while. Because instead of making movies, I've been making peanut butter sandwiches with Skippy. They love the taste of Skippy best, because Skippy has more peanuts in every bite.
Tastes great, Mom.
And no wonder. Skippy has more ground roasted peanuts than any other national brand.
Sure tastes like peanuts.
Yeah. If your children like the taste of more peanuts, they'll love Skippy. Skippy's got more peanuts in every bite.
WBZ-TV, Boston's original TV station.
Eyewitness News, Wednesday, February 8th, with Jack Williams, Maurice Lewis, and the Eyewitness News team.
Good evening. Here's what's happening. It's been nearly 24 hours now since the snow stopped falling, but Massachusetts remains paralyzed. The state of emergency will remain in effect for at least 24 more hours. That means no cars are allowed on the roads unless they are authorized. Logan Airport will be closed to commercial traffic at least until Friday. And Harvard University was closed today for the first time in its 342-year history. Today's clear skies gave us a chance to take a first complete look at the storm's aftermath. The sight is not very pretty. More bodies were found today. 2 were women who were stranded in their car and died of asphyxiation. The death toll is now 13. In Salem Harbor, the Coast Guard has managed to evacuate the 28 stranded crewmen from a big tanker grounded during the storm. But Army troops and equipment have begun to arrive at Logan Airport. Flights will continue throughout the night, and the troops are being put to work immediately. The South Shore area perhaps is the hardest hit. Entire sections of the Scituate waterfront have been wiped out. In a number of locations, piles of rubble mark the spot where houses once stood. Wrecked boats, wrecked docks, devastated buildings with damage amounting to millions of dollars. The total extent of damage to the Commonwealth is unknown and may not be calculated for some time to come. Extra police and MP units remain on patrol tonight, ready to arrest looters. Hotels, motels, and emergency shelters remain crowded tonight with people stranded by the storm. Many places are experiencing low supplies of food, but officials say the worst is now over. A little more time, major roadways will be open. Federal troops are finally arriving here in Massachusetts. Big transport planes will be landing throughout the night at Logan Airport. As many as 400 soldiers could be working on the dig-out by morning. We'll have a report from Dan Ray on the landing of the troops coming up in just a few moments. There was a gasoline leak this evening from an 800,000-gallon storage tank at the Revere East Boston line. Officials say it is difficult to estimate just how much gas escaped from the tank at the Union Petroleum Company tank farm. Traffic through the area was rerouted. Authorities say the gas spilled into a small ditch not far from Suffolk Downs. Full details on the incident still not available to us. We have crews on the scene. A fire official says the gas leaked from a crack in the base of the tank and apparently a crack in the safety dike, one apparently caused by the cold weather. Again, crack, gasoline leak in an 800,000-gallon storage tank on the Revere East Boston line. Maurice?
Well, Jack, some towns are taking drastic action to fight the snow. Tonight, the Weymouth Town Selectmen voted to impose a 10 p.m. curfew to get people off the streets and out of the way of snow removal equipment. And beginning at 5 o'clock tomorrow morning, the Weymouth Police will enforce a ban on driving by blocking all major roads leading into the town, private contractors with snow removal equipment are asked to volunteer their services to the town. If they don't, the police say they will confiscate the equipment. The people of the town of Scituate are perhaps hardest hit by this granddaddy storm. The south shore of the city has been virtually isolated, and for the first time today, the devastation became apparent. Northeast gales are not new to Scituate, but no one has seen fury equal to yesterday's storm in memory. Seas surged over entire sections of the waterfront. There are estimates that up to 100 homes have been badly damaged or destroyed by the storm. Authorities estimate damage to reach into the millions of dollars. Some of the human tragedy is already apparent. At least 2 people have lost their lives, one of them a 5-year-old girl swept out of the arms of firemen during rescue attempts yesterday. The force of the storm tore homes from their foundations, others reduced to scrap.
I think this kind of a disaster brings out the best in everybody. The cooperation that's been had from the residents of Scituate is overwhelming.
Few things escaped the storm. These boats were lifted hundreds of feet from the harbor. Clogged roads and flooding hampered efforts to fight 5 fires. 4 houses were destroyed. Nearly 300 people sought shelter at Scituate High School. There they told of their escape.
What happened to you? Can you tell us?
We were flooded.
And how did you get up?
The water came right up. They evacuated us with the police cars and a great big bus.
What kind of shape was your house in, do you know?
Just water. That's all. No electricity, but just water.
Well, I stayed until the last minute, until I seen the houses across the street being washed away. There's about 14 houses right in the road that were washed away. The street is completely full of sand and debris and telephone poles, everything. It's just impossible. So we walked 1 mile and 2/10 to the center where we got a truck, and this is where we've been since.
What about your own house?
I'm praying that it's half there. But I doubt it. If the houses across the street come on top of it, it won't be there.
Well, Army convoys from Fort Devens have fought their way into the North Shore. The going along Route 128, the Mass Pike, and the Southeast Expressway provided numerous obstacles. Federal forces linked up immediately with National Guardsmen and MDC units in Revere. Many beach area residents were trapped by floodwaters, with the streets still underwater in the Beast Hirsch section. Some rescues were not possible until afternoon. Still water ran deep, often undercutting the rescue efforts. The surf beat on an angry crescendo, vaulting the seawall, but today's rate was less than yesterday. Some 2,500 people have been helped by the Red Cross at Revere High School, but there was one problem that was not anticipated. Family pets also arrived at the shelter. Some people were bitten, but for the most part, the problems are far more serious for people left without homes for the past 3 days. There are more storm-related problems along the North Shore where the Coast Guard has suspended overnight its search for the lone possible survivor of the pilot boat Can-Do. The bodies of 4 other crewmen, Captain Frank Quirk, Don Wilkerson, Norm Curley, and Ken Fuller, have been recovered near that grounded Greek tanker in Salem Sound. Some oil has spilled, but the exact amount not yet known. Governor Dukakis and Lieutenant Governor O'Neill took a helicopter tour today of communities north and south of the city. One of the storm aftermath situations that they studied was the condition of Route 128 in the Canton Blue Hills area. Hundreds of snowbound vehicles clogged the 128 roadways, cars, trucks, and trailers, some buried beneath the drifting snow. Officials say it could be the weekend before the roadway is clear. An emergency lane has been opened on the roadway, but people with snowbound cars are urged not to try to remove them. The removal operation will involve those newly arrived federal troops. Federal troops have now begun to arrive in Massachusetts. Transport planes will be landing throughout our state this evening. As many as 400 soldiers could be working the dig-out crews by morning. Eyewitness reporter Dan Ray has more.
The first C-130 involved directly in the cleanup operation touched down at 6 o'clock, 3 hours later than predicted. A handful of soldiers and a couple of small vehicles headed to a staging area. The second C-130 didn't arrive until 7:30, it too behind the original schedule. According to federal officials, this scene will be repeated all night long at Logan until 25 planes, including larger C-141s, have deposited equipment and men in Massachusetts. What 400 soldiers can do against conditions like this won't be known until the weekend. Earlier today, Senators Kennedy and Brooke flew home to survey storm damage. Brooke talked about what could be done until more federal assistance was provided.
All we want to do now is to assure everyone that everything that the federal government can do working in conjunction with the state government and with the local governments, we are here to do. And we'll be here to set up our offices and to work with you and anything else we can do.
To underscore the desperation of this situation, one North Shore town official told me tonight not a single state or federal person had been in his town for the last 72 hours. From Boston, Dan Ray, TV4 Eyewitness News.
Thousands of people beat a path to neighborhood stores and supermarkets today. The warmer temperatures brightened the search for fresh food. The volume of customers was 2 or 3 times regular levels for Wednesdays. Milk, bread, and bakery items sold at a very high volume. Although more people shopped today than usual, they also spent about half as much money for their purchases. There were some exceptions, however. We visited one supermarket in the Alston Brighton this afternoon and found that even the National Guard was in the act.
These rations are for the troops in my company. And we figured to eat pretty good tonight.
We live with a bunch of other people, so we're going out in shifts. You know, we live in a house and there's about 6 in the house, so this is our shift today, going out for that. We called around the neighborhood to see if any of the older people needed any help, but they were well taken care of and stuff.
What kind of things have you bought today?
Just normally basic stuff that we haven't had for a few days. Bread, milk, cheese, eggs, things like that.
Most stores are experiencing delivery problems. Estimates for new supplies range from later tonight till late tomorrow night. If you do go out for food, it would be a good idea to check with neighbors, especially the elderly or the handicapped, to see if they need some supplies. And some housing projects need food badly, especially Columbia Point. 250 residents of that project have been without electricity since Monday. It was turned on tonight. They especially need milk and baby food. Jack?
Maurice, for people who think the conditions will rapidly return to normal now that the storm is over, you may have another thing coming. In spite of rather pleasant weather today, and in spite of the fact that road crews have been working 24 hours a day since Monday, there's still plenty of snow around. Blowing and drifting complicated early removal operations. On Boston Storrow Drive, it will be 2 to 3 days before the road is ready to receive traffic. So far, the equipment is holding up okay. The concern now is fatigue among the men who are working long shifts under very difficult conditions. The MBTA says it's looking for snow shovelers again tomorrow. Those interested should report to the Dudley Station at 6:30 in the morning or at 7 o'clock at the Cabot Maintenance Center. The pay, $3 an hour. The T has this advice for area commuters. Stay home tomorrow if at all possible. The reasons for that are several. A principal one being that the T will be offering no bus service tomorrow. Another reason is the condition of a number of stations and snowbound stretches in between the stations. In Wonderland today, flooding made travel by MBTA trains impossible. Repairs, when they came, will have to include the replacement of electrical switches. The T says it will attempt hourly commuter rail service tomorrow from North Station on all lines except Gloucester Rockport. And tomorrow the MBTA will be attempting to extend the subway train service on all lines with the Quincy, Ashmont, and Wellington Circle among the primary targets. In Rhode Island, federal troops have arrived to help our neighbor state dig out from the worst blizzard of the century. 4 airplanes with 100 troops from Army bases in Georgia and Louisiana arrived during the day today. Another 200 troops arrived tonight. Providence roadways remain giant snow-clogged parking lots with thousands of cars buried in the snow. But that problem, buried and stranded cars, is widespread along the eastern seaboard. This is a scene from a freeway on Long Island. The Los Angeles police have a big break in the Hillside strangling case. Details of that story coming up next.
Hey, Mikey and Bobby and Susie, Life Cereal's got good news for you. A new Life Cereal, Cinnamon Life.
I'm gonna try Cinnamon Life. Do you like it? Yeah, the cinnamony taste is really good. Wanna buy it? No, I like the Life Cereal Mikey likes.
Sometimes it takes 2 kinds of cereals to please all kinds of kids. Regular Life and new Cinnamon Life. Make Life cereals part of your nutritious breakfasts.
Dr. Jim Wasco is one of a new breed of doctors who make house calls via the television set. You've probably seen him on Evening. He gives our medical information, and over 500,000 people see him every night. That's quite a large practice and quite a responsibility. But Dr. Wasco is used to responsibility. For the past 3 years, he's been the director of one of the busiest emergency services in New England. Meet our television doctor on TV4's Evening Magazine at 7:30.
TV4 Switched On Magazine, evening, tomorrow at 7:30.
Possible break in the so-called Hillside Strangler case in Los Angeles. A part-time Hollywood actor identified as Ned York is charged with raping and killing 12 young women in that area. York called the police and said that he was their man.
He called us this morning. He asked us to come out because he had some information regarding the so-called Hillside Strangler investigation. We brought him in. The members of the task force talked with him at length. He made certain statements that provided our investigators with enough cause to make the arrest.
The suspect was incoherent during part of the interview with detectives, and later he fell asleep, thus ending the interrogation today. Egyptian President Anwar Sadat has left the United States tonight for a tour of European capitals. Sadat held a final meeting with President Carter today. Carter pledged an all-out effort by the United States to secure peace in the Middle East. And the Egyptian leader said that he was leading with renewed determination for a settlement with Israel. In New York City, Israeli Foreign Minister Moshe Dayan was defending Israel's policy of allowing new Jewish settlements in the occupied West Bank. Dayan reminded people that Israel is surrounded by former enemies.
We really just go back like that and hand it over, or do we have the right to negotiate over it? And that's what we are asking.
Dayan says that Israel will mobilize all of its friends in the United States to curtail any arms sales to Egypt. The long-awaited great debate on the proposed Panama Canal treaties has begun in the U.S. Senate. Observers say the odds are about even whether the Senate will ratify the agreements, giving Panama ownership of the waterway by the year 2000.
The proposed treaties represent the best agreements obtainable. They were carefully negotiated, and that they will protect our interests in the use of the canal.
I could come to no conclusion other than that they are fatally flawed, that the security interests of the United States are not adequately protected, and that the defects are so serious and basic that they cannot be remedied by trying to rewrite the treaties here on the Senate floor.
Several amendments are being offered to make the pacts more acceptable to disapproving senators.
With the cost of a college education spiraling, President Carter has proposed a big boost in federal aid to help the hard-pressed families. The $5.2 billion program would aid about 5 million students, including, for the first time, 2 million from middle-income families. Fire erupted around 5:30 this evening in a row of 3-decker tenements on Marion Street in East Boston. The fire, belching from upper-story windows, was visible from a number of points around the harbor area. Several families were safely evacuated from the buildings. No injuries were reported. The 3-alarm blaze caused an undetermined amount of damage. It is under investigation. In terms of weather, we have much to talk about this evening. Bruce says the cleanup should be favorable condition-wise. We'll have his report in just a moment.
Oh, Glenda, I love it.
My new hairdo?
Your new coffee, it tastes great.
Oh, it's Melita coffee.
Melita coffee? Never heard of it.
Introducing Melita Coffee for drip coffee makers, the finest filter grind of the very best beans. See how fine Melita grinds its beans? Most coffees are coarse. Best beans and finest grind guarantee great taste.
Melita coffee, huh?
Yep, Melita coffee.
Melita, a coffee you never heard of, a taste you'll never forget.
Great cities are on sale at TWA. Take off this winter, and TWA will take up to 59% off your economy fare.
I can give you London for only $250 round trip. Los Angeles, only $297 round trip.
Now is the time to take advantage of some of our lowest fares in years.
Arizona, only $273 round trip.
TWA's Great City Sale.
Our fares may never be lower.
I know a lot of us are saying right now, please, no more storms for a while. We have to clean up. What's on the horizon, Bruce?
How much is it worth to you?
50 cents.
50 cents. Okay, we've got some weather that's rather heavy down to the south in the Gulf of Mexico, but I think it's going to stay far enough south that we're not going to have to worry about it. and that would mean that our next threat of a passing storm system would be late in the weekend or the first part of next week. So we talk about the good news, we talk about clear, cool weather the next couple of days, maybe a few high clouds around from time to time, and you see the cold air on our national map with a high pressure area swinging down from the northwest, some high clouds and middle level clouds out through the Great Lakes, mostly clear and cold across New England, the cold air driving to the southeast out to sea, and the clouds in this position with what we call the Arctic front. It's cold even down in Georgia, snowing right now in Macon, and temperatures are in the 30s. Very cold rain mixed in with ice pellets in New Orleans for Mardi Gras. This is the bear I'm talking about. It's called a beast. This is a real bomb position for a low-pressure area for New England because many times they tend to ride up along the coast and redevelop or intensify and continue on their way. But what we have going for us is in the upper levels of the atmosphere, we have the upper wind spinning around like this and going eastward, and that means that as this comes up, it'll get caught in that flow and spin out to sea well to our south, and that would alleviate any problems that we may face. We'll just be on the far northern fringes, and therefore just seeing some high clouds from it. Meanwhile, it's raining heavily in much of Florida, and it's going to be rather inclement weather down there for the next couple of days. Snow falling in Texas, out through Oklahoma, northward into the Rockies and the Great Plains. Some areas reporting heavy snow with strong winds. And then farther to the west, we have another storm system moving into the Pacific Northwest, causing even more heavy rain after they just had some a couple of days ago. And you can see on the satellite picture those clouds moving in, and they continue to swing in with that second system coming in from the Pacific. But late satellite shots indicate that that is the last in the series. So they're going to have another flooding and mudslide problem out in California, and then it'll disappear. We look at the cold air again from the Mississippi eastward to our coastline with that northwesterly flow, and down in the Gulf of Mexico, that big storm. This is the morning satellite shot as we take a look-see, and it is a fairly large system with lots of heavy rain, could produce numerous tornadoes in Florida as it moves across during tomorrow. But again, I expect only the northern fringes to get up to the south coast of New England, and that too only being cloudiness, a slight wind shift into the east or northeast. 37 high today. It's not going to be as warm tomorrow. 21 now and clear. Below zero up north, mostly clear skies. 16 and clear through Albany, down to New York City where it's 27. Eastward to Nantucket, clear 19 with a light wind. Generally the winds along the coast out of the north to northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. So that's the good news as well. If we take a look at our forecast for tonight, it calls for clear. Temperature 18 in the city, around 10 in the suburbs with a light wind. For tomorrow, it'll be a sunny day. Temperatures around freezing with a light west wind. And for tomorrow night, for clear, maybe a few high thin clouds. Again, cold with a light wind. And for Friday, it'll be partly sunny. Far northern fringes of that ocean storm. Temperatures in the mid-30s with a light variable wind. So I've got good news. Get rid of me before I bring you some bad.
Yes, go. Well, tonight's weather, a lot of people will be out tomorrow, but we remind you that there continues to be a ban on driving except for emergency and service people. Hospital workers are urged to make their best effort to get to work. They are exempt from the driving ban. Some hospitals are offering rides to employees. If you can't get a ride, call in first. MBTA employees also are exempt from the ban. But if you are not a service worker, the city of Boston is clamping down on the driving ban. The police will begin enforcing a civil defense law that calls for a 1-year jail sentence or a $500 fine or both for unnecessary driving. Coming up in just a moment, we'll have the sports news. Stay tuned.
Mr. Potts, meet my boys. They want homemade soup for dinner.
Well, here is everything you need, except the meat. New soup starter.
Can't make much.
Well, sure can. Just add fresh meat. Soup starter's got vegetables, stock, and seasonings. Simmer 90 minutes. Makes 2 quarts.
Of homemade soup? How about joining us tonight for homemade soup?
New soup starter. Everything for homemade soup, except the meat.
Hi, Mr. Ross. Here's your order. Thanks, Joe. We'll see you.
Goodbye.
So long.
When you take home Kraft Thousand Island dressing, you can be sure the whole family will love it. It's sweet with real bits of pickle relish, rich with golden egg yolk, spicy with red pepper, and tangy with sweet onion. Rich, thick Kraft Thousand Island dressing. Because at Kraft, we think salads ought to be fun.
Right down to the wire, Koo said, I like the way this game is going. Don't count them out.
All right. Half the fans, he said, we're leaving with 5 minutes to go. So much for basketball there. It was a good game. The so much for the 4-game Celtic winning streak. They did make it close in Kansas City, and they do have 3 players coming back to form by Friday. So even in defeat, there are some signs for optimism for Celtic fans. Now, Dave Bing was the main story in the early going out in Kansas City. He hit on 16 of the Celtics' first 24 points in a generally sluggish first quarter. Now, 2 came with Cedric Maxwell leading the break. Here he does North Carolina-Charlotte style. Bing and Cowens kept the Celtics close. I had Bing for 26. UPI said he had 28. Either way, he led the team. Sidney Wicks continued his rebounding surge, getting 12 in the first half. When Ernie D came in, Ernie hit his first 2, generally played solid defense. 47 all at halftime. Here was the ball game right here. Ron Boone will wind up hitting. He led Kansas City with 22 points. They had a 9-point lead with 4:50 left. The Cowens leading the Celtics. I had them for 25. UPI says 24. Anyway, the Celtics came back, made a game out of it. The cruncher was an unbelievable shot from a little-known guy named Bob Nash from the corner with 40 seconds left. Kansas City led by 4. Celtics still didn't quit. 15 seconds left when Wicks got a big tip in, closed the Celtics to within 2, but watch this Lucius Allen free throw. Agonizingly rolls around and in. He hit a second one. That was the ball game with 9 seconds left. Kansas City won it. Final of 104-100. Celtics play New Orleans, Kermit Washington here on Friday. Philadelphia won again. Irving had 23. Milwaukee won. The Braves lost their 10th in a row. Go Piscataway Nets. They won in overtime. 140-138. They snapped a 17-game losing streak. There's joy in Mudville. Los Angeles beat Detroit by 10. And we have Houston leading Chicago going into the 4th quarter. There's a story with a lot of local interest taking place in Portland, Oregon right now. The U.S. Figure Skating Championships are being held. After compulsories, Linda Fradiani, the defending champ in women's figure skating, has the lead among senior women, but in second place is Lexington's Priscilla Hill, trailing by only 3 points. The women will skate the short program tomorrow night. The longer freestyle program goes Friday. There's a good chance that the Bruins will have to cancel their game in Detroit tomorrow night. They are snowbound like the rest of us. They will not be able to fly out of Logan, but they have scheduled a 12:30 charter out of Manchester, New Hampshire. The only problem is, how's a team going to get to Manchester, New Hampshire? Many of the players are stranded in the Topsfield, Andover area north of Boston. They have as much chance of getting to Detroit as you or I. But the word from the Bruins is that they will make every attempt to play the game. In the NHL tonight, Buffalo won, so the Bruins and Buffalo are now tied for first place. Buffalo's wiped out that big Bruin lead. Rangers shut out Minnesota. Chicago has just defeated the Islanders. Final 5-4. Likewise, Toronto over St. Louis. Finally, that was a first for us. If you were watching the ball game, broadcasting a game with one announcer in one city and one in another, it's our version of NBC Nightly News. We had special phone lines so Bob Cousy and I could hear each other. A special hookup enabled me to find out the time left in the quarter in the game and also player substitutions. A few callers couldn't figure out where I was. A couple of callers asked where Johnny Most was, since the game couldn't be carried on radio for technical reasons. In the meantime, Jimmy Myers edited our highlights of the game for the late news, and Gail Granick wrote most of the script. As everybody worked tonight, probably because we had nothing else better to do. It was fun. That's sports. Maurice.
It certainly was, and I was, like you, am encouraged by what I saw this evening.
Yeah, the Celtics are playing much better basketball, as Bob Cousy repeatedly pointed out. With some players coming back, we've got a season left.
All right, we'll look forward to Friday. Washington comes in.
Sure.
All right. Thank you very much, Len. Increased police presence in the streets of Boston has apparently cut down on the break-ins and looting that occurred last night. Sarah Ann Shaw reports.
National Guard members have been stationed near areas that were troubled spots last night. These officers built a fire to keep warm as they kept their vigil. They reported no problems thus far. Further down Washington Street near Codman Square, a supermarket hit last night was broken into again. Some meats were stolen, but little else. Police said there were some unconfirmed reports of incidents in other parts of the city, but overall they feel their presence and military police patrols of the National Guards are helping to keep problems to a minimum. Sarah Ann Shaw, TV4 Eyewitness News.
Well, let's leave on a positive note tonight. Some of you will need to get around Boston tomorrow. There are limited ways to get around since there's a drive on driving. This has been a very long day, a drive on banning. Well, you can walk, snowmobile, or you can put on a pair of cross-country skis and kick and glide to work. Well, sometimes. Or you can jog to work. We also saw some bicyclists today. Just about everyone seemed to like the idea of walking or skiing or running in the streets without worrying about vehicular traffic, just like something on perhaps the old turn of the century time. Well, interesting day today. Try to get some rest tonight, and we'll get her again tomorrow. Maurice, nice working with you.
Nice working with you. Tony Trepper, hurry back. The streets did belong to the people today, and that's going to do it for this edition of Eyewitness News.
Good night.
Instant Eye Hotline. If you see news happening, call 783-4444. Climb Mount Washington with Steve Schatz tomorrow on First 4 News.
From Hollywood, The Tonight Show, starring Johnny Carson. This is Ed McMahon along with Doc Severinsen and the NBC Orchestra inviting you to join Johnny and his guests.
We're here in the WHDH Storm Center. It's 20 minutes after 2 o'clock. We are awaiting another conversation with Governor Michael Dukakis. Ironically enough, he was here in the HDH studios last night when the state of emergency was declared. And he is still keeping on top of the situation. The major problems right now, of course, being evacuations for people who are directly threatened by the storm in the coastal areas along the north and south shore. The only hope or the only good information we can give to people along the north and south shores is that high tide is past now a couple hours ago, actually 3 hours ago. How time flies. And yes. High tide again is 11 o'clock this evening, and there are expected to be more problems, of course, during high tide tonight. But evacuation efforts, hopefully by then, we'll have all the people out of that area that are in great danger of problems. And the winds will, for what it's worth, be of some assistance because they'll shift around a little more to a northerly direction, and the wind blowing up from the water won't be quite as bad. The winds aren't going to subside much. It's not going to be a major help, but it'll be a little better.
I'm Jerry Lopes, just in from the HDH Information Center. Jerry, we have Bob Waller from Boston Police Department, and he has the latest on the looting that was reported in Dorchester. Bob, you with me?
Yes, it's not very clear.
Bob, what is the story there? We had reports of looting. Acting Mayor Larry DeCara could not confirm that, but I guess you have some confirmation there.
Yes, Jerry. We have had some looting throughout the city, and I guess we have a poor line here, though. You're not very loud.
Okay, where specifically have we had the problems?
Well, in the Cosman Square area, and Burrell Avenue, and also up in Columbia Road and Washington Street, we've had reports of looting, and as a result, we've just had 7 arrests from looting at the First National Store at 576 Washington Street in the Cosman Square section. They were arrested by officers from District 11. They have been taken to District 3, and they're in the process of looking right now.
Bob, how bad was it? Whether they throw a rock through the window and break in, or how bad was it?
Yeah, but we don't have the final reports back yet, Jerry, exactly how it happened. But we do have units responding to these areas, and we also have the 972 Military Police Company of the Massachusetts Army National Guard that have arrived.
What becomes of these suspects, Bob? State of emergency here in the state. What becomes of these suspects? What happens?
Well, it'll be up to the court, of course. They will be taken before the courts, and I'm sure that where the governor has declared an emergency, they will be dealt with severely.
Has the looting just been confined to that area, Dorchester?
At this time, it's been Dorchester and Roxbury.
Okay, sir. Thanks much.
You're welcome, Jerry.
Hang on just a sec, Bob. We got Sean Casey here with a question for you.
Bob, what are the instructions to the officers or to the National Guard? How are they supposed to handle the looting situation?
Well, if a crime has been committed, actually the offenders will be arrested.
Like that, okay.
And as I say, at the present time, The National Guard has been deployed to the Boston Police Department to assist the department in the snow emergency. We expect a complement of 130 personnel and 43 vehicles to report to the Boston Police Headquarters, where they will be assigned to police officers in designated areas of the city where the problems will be.
Bob Lawler from the Boston Police Department, thank you very much.
And Jerry Lobes from the HDH Information Center, thank you. It's 24 minutes after 2 o'clock at WHDH. Regarding that situation, let me just make one mention that with regard to the legal situation on the governor's state of emergency, anyone out can be arrested on the spot anyway. Obviously, the police department's not going to bother someone who's not doing anything wrong. When I was coming over here from the hotel, I passed one or two police cars and a whole convoy of National Guardsmen, and nobody even winked at me, you know. Oh, no, they didn't even turn their head. That's not to say that no one should go out and walk a block or shovel or anything else. You should be very careful because it's not a great idea to go out, but nobody's going to bother you. The only point I wanted to make was the legal situation of a state of emergency is that anyone outside can be arrested on the spot, no questions asked. I was just lucky that I wasn't.
But you look suspicious. I think
I had a little bag in my hand. You know, I could have had some goodies in there, you know. It's 25 minutes after 2 at WHDH. Bob Palante is with us and coming in at the moment. He has further word from Boston Edison. Particularly, it's not good, he says. We were hoping, from a report we had earlier, that we would get power back here at WHDH around mid-afternoon, they said at the time, but in all fairness to them, they said it was just a guess. So we'll ask them for maybe another guess. Bob, it's all yours.
Okay, we have Harriet Stanley once again from Boston Edison. We talked to her just a couple of hours ago, and at that time, we were hoping to have power restored here in Copley Square, the area that is still without electricity, one of the main areas in the city. And apparently, it's going to take a little bit longer than by mid-afternoon, huh, Harriet?
Yeah, Bob, it does look like it's going to be late afternoon to early evening at this point. We have a lot of crews working on the downtown Boston outage, and like you said, it is a very concentrated area. It's been a really slow and tedious process that we've had snow backflowing to our stations. And because of the length of the outage, we've had pressure go down, and as you well know, in any mechanical situation, bringing pressure back up is something that has to be done very, very slowly. So at this point, for the people in the Prudential Center, the people at the John Hancock, Copley Square, and parts of Back Bay, we're looking to late afternoon to early evening.
Does it go as far over as Stono Drive? That's what we were told at one point.
Well, I don't believe that this particular outage, which is only 10,000 people, down from 100,000 people, goes that far, but I might be wrong. It may dip over there.
There, and in Winthrop primarily because of the 18-foot waves out there added to all the other problems they have, and so we're going to need amphibian equipment to hopefully bring some relief to them. And I expect that momentarily, all the papers have been signed. Momentarily, the president will sign the papers, and every federal assistance that we can get, of course, will be sent into Massachusetts and also into Rhode Island.
Senator Brooke, how long does that process work in terms of funding? We pretty much killed the state budget on snow removal with the last storm, and now we've got a $19 million deficiency budget up now that anti-abortion forces are talking about tacking on an anti-abortion amendment, so that those funds won't be forthcoming. That'll be tied up, as was the supplemental budget last time around. How long does that process take to get the funds?
Well, Darrell, we're going to do everything we can to cut relief. First of all, of course, it's important, urgent, really, that the president issue the proclamation immediately, because if he does so, then, of course, the federal government can take up the cost of even activating the National Guard itself. If he doesn't do that, then, of course, the Massachusetts government will have to pay for it, which will add immeasurably to our problems already. And, of course, the federal government will take care of its own federal troops as well. And hopefully other disaster relief will be on its way. I think we can cut it to a very bare minimum. And we're trying to do everything we can to cut that red tape and get those funds on the way. I don't want to give you an actual time, but at least the mere declaration that it is a disaster, the proclamation to be issued by the president, will assure us that we will get the federal disaster relief funds available to us. And we do have that money. We've already authorized appropriated that money, so there is federal money for that purpose. And God knows if this isn't a disaster there just isn't one.
Senator Brooke, thank you very much, and I'm sure you'll be keeping us informed on any further developments.
Keep your lines up now, and keep your spirits up as well.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Take care.
Jerry Loebs and Senator Brooke.
Relations are continuing at a good clip. They're satisfied with the way things are going down there in spite of the weather. Swampscott police report that they've evacuated over 100 people by snowmobile to the new high school from the low-lying areas of Swampscott. And a little bit farther south, Revere police, and this seems to be the most intense evacuation of all. 1,500 people in the city of Revere have been evacuated so far from the low-lying beach areas. They've been taken to the Revere High School. Now, the police officer then told me there are only a few phones at the Revere High School, so if you're trying to make contact with them, be patient. There are 1,500 people at Revere High. Tom?
Okay, thank you, Peter. Again, we're on the line with Mayor Kevin White, and we'll get him on the air here on WHDH very shortly. Senator Brooke, as you heard, is involved with getting federal assistance from Washington, and the seriousness of the property damage.
Go back. Keep going, Tom. I just out here. It's pretty good here.
Getting into the areas hardest hit as far as the north and south shores are concerned. We're WHDH, full news in just about 3 minutes at 1:30. It's 27 minutes after 1 at WHDH. Here's Vin Maloney.
We have Al Newpus of the Boston Police Information Center on the phone with some information I'm sure will help a lot of people who may need help in an emergency. You there, Al?
Yes, I'm here.
I know the commissioner gave out the emergency number on Monday for life or death calls, which is 911. But I understand down there at police headquarters you're getting a lot of calls for other things. Are you down there?
Yes, we are being swamped on 9/11, especially for transportation, medical transportation. And we would request anyone requiring emergency medical transportation, which is being provided by the 114th Medical Battalion of the Army National Guard, to call 782-2323. I'll repeat that number. This is for medical transportation and emergency to a hospital. The number is 782-2323. And as regard the other numbers that are given out, this is just strictly then on the medical transportation for emergency cases. Someone has to go to a hospital, maternities, or insulin shots, or what have you. We have the National Guard that will provide the service, but we have to have them channeled in on the right number, which is 782-2323.
Okay, Al, now that leaves 9/11, and I use the term that was for, life or death circumstances. Just what does the commissioner want people to use 9/11 for?
On 9/11, if you have a serious crime or a serious accident or somebody that is desperately in need of help, we still want them to call 9/11. But if they would, now we get an awful lot of calls, people making inquiries on arrests, the transportation and whatnot. The calls are not of an emergency nature. If they have an emergency, they need help, they are still asked to call 9/11, but just to call the emergency number that we have given out for medical transportation and tried to use reasoning and went to call 911.
Okay, we thank you very much for that information. I'm sure it'll be helpful to people who might need medical assistance or that kind of thing in the city of Boston, and that will leave 911 open for the actual police work.
All right, thank you, Red.
Ken Maloney, HDH News. Thank you, sir. That number again, medical transportation only, 782-2323, 782-2323.
Emergency ambulance. That's 247-4000. That's in the South End. 247-4000, Project Place Emergency Ambulance.
Thank you. Bob Pilati is due momentarily with complete news from WHDH. It is 1:30. We're here under battery power once again. Bob will have the latest from Boston Edison, but unless that has changed, the latest is that there is still no estimate as to when power will be restored to about 40,000 people in the Boston area, Prudential Center, Copley Square, Government Center, and Kenmore Square being the major areas that have been affected, as well as some areas in the Back Bay. They don't know the exact problem yet, and as soon as they find out what that is, hopefully they can give us a guess as to when it's going to be back on. We suspect from our last conversation with them that it may be a while, and we're ready. In that event, we're all here. Jess and Al Brady and Sean and Dave Supple and the full, of course, news department. Everybody is here at HDH. Monday, when this thing hit, everybody made it in. Nobody made it home.
Most of us were already here.
That's true. Yeah, but
There's some nice reunions when everybody gets home.
That's true. Either that or some big trouble.
He's married to a telephone, so what would he know?
Jerry was our Lily Tomlin yesterday. He was
really handled.
He was here with the phone every time we looked up. Jerry was in here with somebody else on the air on the phone live.
And that's the way it's going to be this afternoon too, as long as the power remains out and as long as the emergency situation exists in Boston. And at about 1:33 at WHDH in Boston, Bob Pilati from the HDH Information Center is here. Bob, it is all yours.
Okay, 80% of the Edison customers here in the city of Boston, or about 40,000 people, maybe a bit more, give or take a few thousand, are in the dark. And we know what caused it now, a fire at Edison South Boston substation, blowing out at least 4 transformers. Edison officials don't expect it to take as long to get the power back as the last outage, but it's going to take a while, probably several hours. In the meantime, we're still in a state of emergency here in the Bay State, meaning don't go out of your homes. Roads are simply impassable. And even if you have a car that's buried in the snow on one of the major highways, as all the fellows here have been telling you, only official storm workers will be allowed access to them. Those cars will be towed to a storage garage. You'll be able to pick them up later. For those of you with cars, trucks, and 128, the number to call starting tomorrow morning, 727-4800. 727-4800, the number to call starting tomorrow morning, not today. If you have a car in 128 that's buried, and you'll be able to find out where it's been towed, and you'll be able to pick it up at a later date. More than 2,500 cars in all have been towed off of 128, or will be towed soon. And there will be no charge for that tow, incidentally. Obviously. The Army has made it here, finally. A couple of hundred troops landing at Logan a short while back. More are on the way. They'll be dispatched to the areas where they're needed most. One of those areas, of course, the coastal areas. It's been devastated. Thousands have been evacuated. They're in shelters. National Guard armories being taken care of. And more people are still being taken to higher ground in Hull, Nahant, Scituate, in Revere, and in Winthrop. At least 10 deaths, maybe more, have been caused in this storm already, including 2 crew members from a Coast Guard vessel, the one that had gone out to help that Greek tanker, which had gone aground. And the search is still on for 3 more missing crew members of the Can-Do, that pilot boat. And the crew of the Greek tanker, apparently okay. 40 people, at least 40 people in all, across the New England states have been killed in this storm. And that is the latest we have. And as Tommy and Al and the fellows have been telling you here, the T is running. And I heard them run down the sections where the T is, but they're not for passengers, really, only to keep the tracks clear and warm, and so the brakes don't freeze, but they're running on a limited basis when needed. Joe Sobel now with the exclusive HDH AccuWeather forecast.
Number 1 in Rockport, a favorite scene for artists. If you've ever seen a little red building on some tall piers, and a boat bobbing there on a lobster, I think it's a lobster boat. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is. and it's a beautiful seaside scene. That's called motif number 1. It was completely wrecked. The pier at Old Orchard Beach is firewood right now. It's been complete. It's all strewn across the beach, and Peter Stuyvesant, the Hudson River excursion boat next to Pier 4, sank this morning.
And power.
Okay, this is what they call a heavy engineer company. In this company, there are about 30 pieces of heavy equipment, bulldozers, front-end loaders, and it will be accompanied by dump trucks and about 200 regular Army troops.
And they were all, of course, from Fort Bragg.
That's right, sir.
Okay, we'll be checking with you throughout the afternoon. Now, you are posted at your headquarters, I'm sure.
That's right, sir.
And easily accessible. We just picked up the phone and called you.
Okay.
So we'll be talking to you a bit later. Thanks much.
Thanks for calling.
Thank you, Jerry. We would assume then, since a lot of the Army troops are being sent to the Masspike and 128 areas, that local civil defense and state officials are going to be handling the north and south shores. They've done an incredible job so far in evacuations, and it's going to be, as we discussed earlier, some time before the north and south shores get back to the beautiful Boston coastline that we know. Unfortunately, it's
I'm
been
going to go back to the
devastating.
newsroom right now because I spent some time in the Copley Plaza Hotel this morning. A lot of people were checking out. We talked with Alan Tremaine, the manager, earlier this morning. I'm sure it's true all the other hotels in town. People are checking out, and as someone said earlier here, I think it was Al who said everybody's saying, have a nice trip. But the trip is to nowhere until we find out when the planes will be flying out of Logan. I'm going to go check that out, or get Vin on it, or Jerry, or somebody to see whether they can talk to Ron.
If you give up a hotel room now, all those people that have been sleeping in the lobby may grab it. You may end up in the lobby.
Well, it's really incredible. It was almost like all of the people that I ran into in the hotel were unaware of everything that was going on. Maybe they were there without transistor radios. I guess most people who go to hotels don't have transistor radios. They're not all radio people like we are. And it was almost like they were unaware of exactly what the situation was. And the minute they saw a snowplow go down the street on Huntington Avenue, bam, out the door, we're going. It's goodbye, go home, get to the airport, get wherever it is. And the desk clerk at the hotel was telling them, you don't really want to do this. You don't really want to give up your key because you're going to go out and an hour later you're going to be back and your room's not going to be here anymore.
And in many cases, they didn't believe it.
That's right.
And a lot of those guys were wearing big Texas hats, so they got a long way to go by airplane and a further way on foot.
20 minutes to 2 at WHDH. Jess, Al Brady, Tom Kennedy, Jim Sands is with us. Everybody in the newsroom. Complete and continuing coverage of the biggest snowstorm on record ever.
When is the last time you went to a hotel and you went in to have breakfast and the crew in the restaurant met you at the door and told you what you were going to have? We were greeted this morning by a very pleasant lady who said, now listen, we're the night crew. We don't know how to do breakfast. We don't know how to cook anything. We've arranged to make eggs. We have no juice. We don't know how to make toast. You can have cereal if you want it, and you can have your eggs any way you want them, and that's all you can have. This is it. And if you want to eat here, that's the way you're going to do it.
And the hotel I was at, last night's menu was from a Xerox machine, and it started, for your convenience, we have prepared the following storm menu, and it had 3 items, and that was it.
That was the end of that. That's the way the situation is in Boston, and we are relaying it to you on WHDH Radio. We are once again without power. Around 40,000 people in the city of Boston have no power at this moment, and the operation is dig out. People all over the Boston area are digging out from under. The state of emergency is still in existence. No vehicular traffic, no work, no schools, no businesses, no nothing is going on. And that's the way it's going to be at least until midnight tonight, and perhaps even longer than that. But so we can save ourselves some speculation, we'll wait to hear from the governor on whether or not the state of emergency will be extended. It is 1:42 on WHDH in Boston. I'm here with Jess Kane, Tom Kennedy, Jim Sands, Jack Lazar.
Jack Lazar just came in. Good morning,
John
Jack.
Casey. Good morning. It's the most people I've ever seen in this radio station, even under normal circumstances.
The governor is meeting with a host of agencies and advisors and will make a decision probably within the next 15 minutes whether or not to extend the driving ban. Spokesman Joe Berlin tells us the announcement will come sometime around 2 o'clock.
The governor is in MTC headquarters right now at the storm headquarters. He's talking to some of the people who have been involved from the MPC for the past 72 hours on this. They're going to be making a decision
decision fairly shortly on whether to extend that emergency.
Spokesman Berlin also says Army troops can be expected to land soon.
Yeah, as we understand, the runway has been cleared. They're expecting the plane to land somewhere around 2 o'clock.
The state police says once those troops land, they will be transferred to state police headquarters in Framingham by helicopter. Jim?
All right, now, David, the governor was to have a press conference at about 2 o'clock this afternoon. Is this announcement in any way going to be affected by the power outage in Boston?
From what I can understand, what he's going to do is they're going to make a decision whether they have the press conference or not. It seems to be immaterial. They'll make a decision sometime around 2 o'clock.
Okay, you'll get back on the line with your people then?
Yes, sir.
And if that announcement is forthcoming in this newscast, we'll get it right to you. Boston is in the midst of one big power outage right now.
It would be easy to say which areas of Boston are not affected. The retail district up around Dredden Marsh, I understand, still has power. But you can assume that every other part of Boston, from the South Boston switching yard right through to the Back Bay up to Kenmore Square, all these folks who were out of power last night are again without power as a result of this fire.
Edison's Bill Conley tells GTR News 40,000 customers are affected. Conley says ice has to be removed from the main station by hand. That is what caused the fire in the station and blacked out Boston. It'll be a couple of hours before power is back. Edison spokesman Fred Roth tells GTR News there were reports of power outages in Natick Sherwood Plaza. Roth says the extent of the outage or what caused it was not known about an hour ago. Now they know that 2 stores were out, but they were back almost immediately. GTR newswoman Roseanne Pawelek is here with a story about schools. No schools in some schools until next Monday.
5 of them arrested. The people trying to take advantage of the storm, making off with TVs, furniture, radios, you name it. Local stores and businesses. The law is apparently going to come down hard on them. The Suffolk County DA's office has set up a special unit to prosecute them, and they are vowing to give them the sternest action possible and the swiftest. It could get up to 20 years. More than 125 looters arrested during the storm, over half of them in the Roxbury, Dorchester, Mattapan section. Some arrested in Charlestown and the South End as well. As we've been telling you, the T is running on a limited...
Okay, hello.
Hi.
Hi, this is Jim McAllister, WGTR. What is the situation on the road driving ban at this hour?
The governor just announced that for all the... Unfortunately, our power has gone out here, so we weren't able to do the broadcast for the radios and TV, although we are going to try to get on the radios as quickly as we can. But the governor has announced that the emergency will continue through tomorrow, including the driving ban. He had just come back from an aerial view of the entire area, and it is a mess. It is really, really bad. The coastal areas and 128 are in awful shape, and you know, all of the calls that are starting to come in now with all kinds of emergency needs for food and fuel and the state institutions and the hospitals and all of the places that we have to get things to people. We just have to keep the roads clear of civilian traffic so that we can have another day to get in there and do what we need to do.
Now, when you say the emergency will continue in effect, does this mean all but essential businesses and schools will remain closed as well?
Schools closed, banks closed, businesses closed. The only thing allowed open will be absolutely essential services.
Now, on the driving ban, who is and who is not allowed on the road under this ban? There seems to be confusion as to whether people going perhaps to work in a grocery store where they would be dispensing groceries to people
No,
who need them.
if they're going to work in a grocery store and they can walk to work to get to the grocery store, they can go. But the problem is you can't go anywhere. You know, if you're in your own car, you're not going to go very far. And it's kind of a futile attempt to try to go anywhere. You know, sometimes, you know, it might be okay in someone's own little area, but they go a mile from their home or 2 miles from their home, and they're going to be, you know, waist deep in the stuff. You know, almost all of the neighborhoods in Boston and the surrounding communities are all down. I mean, there's no street travel. It's just completely wiped out. And there'll be days before they get them out.
Okay, so what people are allowed on the roads?
Only essential personnel.
Which includes nurses, doctors, people of that sort?
Yeah, and doctors, you know, anybody who works for the electric company, the gas company, fire people, fire protection, police protection, you know, very essential service.
Okay, now we had a report this morning that news people, reporters and photographers, are allowed on the road under this. Is that true?
That is true. That our feeling was that it was important for the news media people to be able to transmit the news so that we can inform people what's going on, and we have accepted those personnel.
Okay, quickly to recap, the driving ban has been extended how long?
Through tomorrow. And we'll say more tomorrow about where we go from there.
All right, through tomorrow at what time? You mean midnight tomorrow night?
Well, just, let's say, until we tell people differently.
Okay, and these will be day-to-day decisions, in other words?
Yes.
All right, and the MDC?
Still there, Sergeant?
Sure am.
Boy, I don't know how you're doing it.
Oh, I'm all right.
But you've been kind of masterminding this whole thing. Have you had any sleep today?
No, I'm afraid not. I got 2 hours in a chair last night between 3 and 5 in the morning, but that's it.
Well, that's the famous Southborough Police Chief's overstuffed chair.
Right.
We have an overstuffed cot on the 3rd floor here at WGTR.
Sure you do.
It's been staying warm. But I wanted to ask you what the conditions are right now. First of all, along Route 9, starting at Fayetteville back to the Westboro line, how is the removal with the DPW and the plows and getting those cars off the big parking lot called Route 9?
Yeah, things have improved greatly. I understand now that we could get an emergency vehicle through all of Route 9 West. And
Great.
That's the first time we've opened that up.
Beautiful.
And that's good news. And we're still working very diligently to get enough vehicles off the eastbound lane to open that up. And that's quite a project considering the best count we have so far, there were 700 stranded vehicles out there, and many of them tractor-trailer units. That has improved. The shelters, we're working very hard to get people out of the shelters and home through National Guard units and civil defense and other units like that. So we have made progress there too. And now we're just beginning to try to put together massive list of towed vehicles, and that's the next problem. We're having a problem, of course, with people driving that really shouldn't be, and I've just had to instruct all Southborough policemen to take whatever enforcement actions are necessary to stop it. But the best way to stop it is, the citizen cooperation.
Well, in Natick, the police are pulling people over, and I know the state police have actually, I understand, impounded a couple of cars.
Yeah, well, it's too bad to have to do that. You don't want to do it, but, well, if people won't listen, I guess that's what we have to do.
Yeah, well, people look at the roads, and they see the snow is melting, and they say, oh, it's a beautiful day, and why can't I go? But all the secondary roads are really a mess, and the emergency vehicles, and the roads are narrow. It's the other big problem.
That's right. Well, what'll happen, they'll get to a street somewhere where they can't get through, and then we'll end up what we started with before, where they get blocked, and the plow gets blocked, somebody else gets blocked, wreckers can't get in, and that's how it begins.
And they all get stuck again, right?
Yeah, we sure do.
Plus, tonight it's going to go down below freezing, and all this melted snow is going to turn to solid ice.
That's right.
It's a mess. What's going on now with the people who are stranded at some of the places? Like I know at Data General, there are a lot of people up there that have been there since Monday night, too.
Yeah, there still are quite a few, and we're working very hard now to try to get some of those people out of there and get them home somehow, perhaps through the National Guard or civil defense units. They've been safer there. They've been well housed and well fed, and that's really the major thing we're doing now, aside from trying to get Route 9 borrowed out, is to try to get some of these people home. It's been quite a while since they've been away from home.
Yeah. Are there any problems there with young children or something, or?
Not too bad with young children, and we've had tremendous success with meeting medical emergencies and making sure enough insulin was available to diabetics, and that's pretty good. I think the only thing we're being a little cautious of now is we're beginning to run out of food, but we'll do well. We're very well organized, considering.
Well, and we're trying to get through to the Wonder Bakery here in Natick. I understand they've got enough. They can't get the big bread trucks out to make their usual distribution. And the Wonder Bakery here in Natick on Speen Street distributes to the whole Northeast. So they have all this bread that's sitting there, and they're trying to get it out to the markets and get it also through the National Guard.
Oh, I see.
We've been running missions up there to get it in. They're taking it into Boston. They're also running out of milk out here, so they're trying to get that taken care of.
Beautiful.
So we're getting kind of organized.
Oh, yeah, we sure are. That's the advantage of having that cooperation.
Well, that's on we go through the storm. We'll check back later on. Are you going to get any sleep, Sergeant?
Those 2 hours will hold me for a while.
Okay. I came on at 6 this morning relieving John Kasayan, who's been on the air all night. And he was supposed to relieve me at 1, but I feel great. So as long as I feel great, let him sleep, then he can take over and go on tonight.
And we appreciate all your help getting the warnings over the air, too. It's been very effective. We're stopping a lot of calls coming into the police station. We had periods
one where dispatchers are answering 4 and 5 calls every 11 seconds. They were coming in that rapid.
Gee, you know, while you're mentioning that, and before I forget it, I'd like to make another announcement. I've mentioned something in relation to that. We've gotten a lot of calls, of course, here at WGTR throughout the storm, but we're starting to get calls now from people who don't really understand that just because their street isn't plowed, they are not being discriminated against. That not even half the secondary streets are even touched. So if you feel that your street has some special merit, please don't call the police, don't call the highway departments. They're trying to do the best they can. It's the worst storm in history in terms of the amount of snowfall in 24 hours in the history of New England. They've never had a storm like this, so naturally it's going to take, it may be this weekend before they get to your street.
So I find that hard to believe.
Yes. And one of the nicest things that people can do, if you really are concerned about older people on your street, go over and help them. Go out and dig their steps so they can get out in case of a fire. You know, just help them out. Get the kids working. It's a wonderful thing to see neighbors helping each other in this kind of a thing. And I'm sure you agree with that, Sergeant Carter?
Sure do.
Okay.
Thanks for your help.
Thank you, and good luck to everybody in Southborough working so hard to keep those people going.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Governor Dukakis.
Well, Governor Bob Palante. Hi, Bob. How are you? Not too bad. Okay. Why don't you give us an update on the situation and what you have to tell the people, first of all. All right. Lieutenant Governor O'Neill and I just a few hours ago completed a helicopter tour of the South Shore, the North Shore, and the 128 area. It can only be described as awesome. 128 is jammed with cars, 3 abreast over a 7-mile stretch from Needham to Canton, and it will take us literally days to unplug that road. Most other roads are not in very good shape at all. Our coastal communities have been devastated both to the south and the north, and evacuation efforts are continuing and will be assisted by the arrival this afternoon of federal troops and equipment. It is very clear, however, that there is simply no way that we can restore normal services and return to normal behavior and customary activity at least through tomorrow. So the state of emergency will continue tomorrow through midnight at the very least, and then tomorrow we'll have to make a judgment as to what happens on Friday. But clearly, the state of emergency must continue. Not only that, but we're getting now increasing requests for emergency service, for food, for fuel, and for health services and medical care, which means that we have to keep roads open for fuel trucks and for food deliveries and that kind of thing. And that's another reason why people must continue to stay in their homes and not use their private passenger vehicles. Governor Dukakis, I know you've been in contact closely with all the rescue operations, but especially with the MDC, and the situation on the coast is devastating, we're told. Yes, it is. It's hard to describe the scene that one sees as one flies over these areas. Down, for example, in Nantasket and Scituate, houses are have literally been washed away. Some are tipping into the water. Others have been smashed to smithereens, and one sees nothing but scrap lumber on the ground. Shore roads are out. Seawalls have been broken. To the north in Revere, there are houses and cars in feet of frozen water, frozen salt water, whole neighborhoods that are absolutely frozen in with 5, 6, 7 feet of water. And we're still working hard to evacuate some of the remaining people that are in some of those neighborhoods up in Revere. So the situation continues to be very critical in those communities. We'll be in close touch with you, Governor. One thing, can we be assured of some cash coming into us following this up? What I'm saying is in the next few days or so, does Jimmy Carter have to sign another bill or something? Can we be assured of some federal assistance in the form of dollars? The only assurance we have at this point, thanks to the President's emergency declaration, is that federal troops and federal equipment will be made available to us, and that already is beginning. Within the next few days, as we dig out, we will begin the preparation of a state application for designation as a federal disaster area, and that will require documentation. It will require an assessment of damage and of value and all of those things. We'll prepare that just as quickly as possible and send it to the White House with the hope that the President will approve it. But that will take a few days anyway, and only if that application is approved will substantial loans and grants be available.
Governor Dukakis, we just spoke to him just a few moments ago. So the state of emergency, as we've been telling you now, is going to be in effect through midnight Thursday. Please stay home. You'll get your vehicles if they're stranded on the highways. 2,500 or so are stranded all across, and all across 128. You'll get them. They're being towed and free of charge, of course. And there'll be a number available. You can call starting tomorrow morning, and your cars will be available at that time.
That was it. 6 o'clock, I got on Route 9. At 8 o'clock, I had moved 40 feet.
Yeah, this is what I heard. Mark Davis was out on the turnpike, and he said it took about 3 hours to go from Boston to route to exit 13.
So what we did, we moved, there were a couple of semi-trucks that had single axles instead of dual axles, and they were able to move out of the way. But we got around, I have snow tires in my car, but it was, again, incredible the number of people who didn't even have snow tires in their car.
Sure.
We moved around. I went up on the center span and got to there's a break in Route 9 across from Crandall Hicks, and I was obviously in the eastbound lane. I get into the westbound lane, and I started driving eastbound, and I just was, hoping that I get up to there was a Deerfoot Road meets Route 9 there, and I went down Deerfoot Road, which hadn't been plowed, kept going down there for about, I don't know, half a mile or so, and there was a car right sideways across the road, so I had to stop. Got out, walked down to a farmhouse about a mile and a half down the road, got my guys to come over, and we pulled the car out of the way, and pulled my car, and bingo, I got home. I was home about 10 o'clock. But if I hadn't, my car would still be out there. Now, I just came from Southborough, and Route 9 looks exactly the same as it did 2 days ago. There are trucks, there are cars, there are people walking up 85 back and forth from that school where they have stayed the night, and they're having a good time. There's more practical common sense, I think, being exercised there. They're just not trying to do anything. Ted's and their large mammoth wreckers are out there trying to pull some of those trucks off the interchanges, which they are able to do to some extent. But I would expect that the governor has got his finger on the pulse, and Saturday I would think would be optimistic as far as getting the thing opened up.
Okay, Doug, you've been out plowing since when?
Well, we were out yesterday. We worked yesterday until, well, actually, I came home. I went to bed about 6:15 this morning and get up again around 11:15. And so we'll be probably banging around. We're trying to get into some of the other areas in the center now.
In other words, what towns are you working in?
Well, we've been back and forth from Framingham to Milford. I've seen about every town between here and Milford, and I think, as I say, that the best job I have seen is in the Milford area, and the worst job I have seen, quite frankly, is in Framingham.
Let me ask you a couple of questions people have been asking me all the time. Now, you're out there, and basically we don't get the chance to talk to a snow plower.
Yeah, I'm not really, I'm trying to make sure that everybody's working. Although I'm going to go jump on a tractor myself right now and
that's okay.
try and get some things cleaned
You're out there, in other words.
Yeah.
You're in the fields, you could say.
Yeah.
People are saying that basically they're not getting side streets plowed, and the DPW says that won't be possibly maybe till tonight, maybe even later, that a lot of secondary roads and side roads will not be plowed. That's possible, isn't it?
Yeah, see, the thing is that we were last night in Northborough, and there were some streets down there that hadn't even been cleaned out. One of the things that interested me was, again, the number of people who obviously tried to get out or to get home, and they just left their cars. And that's what the problem is on some of even like the state highways, 16, 135, 85, Route 9, any of the major or secondary roads, and those cars just can't be moved. If there was a good-hearted soul who had the equipment, he could move those cars if the people were with the cars, but obviously they're not, so they have to, they stay there. And I would say that, if anybody wanted to be practically practically realistic, I would say that, you're looking at no more school this week, and you're looking at probably no more work maybe until Friday. One thing that I also ought to try to, it's difficult sometimes for people to find places to put the snow, but it's very, very inconvenient and almost selfish, I would say, for people to be taking snow out of their driveways and pushing it into the middle of the road, or pushing it, piling it up on bankings on the other side of the road. It just almost blocks the road. And the road is going to be, when it gets cold, very lumpy.
Yeah,
and it's going to be dangerous. So, all these things we can talk about, but I just thought that from the point of view of practicality, maybe we could lend a little bit of a hand, and hopefully people will sort of stay in. Another thing that I've seen a lot of that is very unfortunate is a lot of young kids on ski-mobiles out on the road.
Well, most towns are saying that unless you're authorized by the police, they don't want them on the roads.
The police don't have time to chase anybody. They don't want them on the road.
Right, that's what they're saying.
And once they get that done, they're going to start towing cars to an area of 128 which has been plowed, and then beginning tomorrow sometime, probably later on in the morning tomorrow, you can call this number to get information on how you may retrieve your automobile.
Tomorrow what to do about Friday, they'll decide Friday what to do about the weekend. And on we go, I guess.
Oh, okay. And Harold Levy just came in.
Well, I just wanted to say Happy Ash Wednesday. Thank you very much, Harlan.
New England. First of all, for tonight, clear skies, low temperatures in the upper teens, but colder in the suburbs. There'll be a light northwest wind at about 5 or 10 miles per hour. For tomorrow, a sunny, beautiful day, but cool. The high temperature only about 32 degrees. A light northwesterly wind again at about 5 or 10 miles per hour. Tomorrow night, clear and continued cold. Low temperatures in the upper teens with a light variable wind. And for Friday, it'll be partly sunny. The high temperatures on Friday getting up into the mid-30s with a light variable wind continuing. There is a fairly large storm in the Gulf of Mexico, but it does appear at this time that it's going to slide across North Florida, bringing a fairly decent snowstorm to portions of Georgia and the Carolinas. But it's going to stay far enough to our south and well enough offshore that we're just going to see high, thin clouds in the Boston and New England area on Friday. So the big storm is going to stay out in the ocean, not affecting us, and it looks like we're going to continue our lucky weather pattern right on through the weekend.
Coming from South Florida. I think someone misunderstood me earlier about the nature of this state of emergency in Massachusetts. And this is not a josh, friends. I mean, this is a serious matter. Non-essential people are not to go out. That's all. You just are not to go out. That is the nature of the state of emergency here. They are trying to plow streets. They are trying to find abandoned automobiles. And the idea is for you to remain in your home, take it easy, relax, and don't go out driving. A woman very irritated, and she had a right to be agitated when you consider the possible consequences. There apparently have been some fools who have gone out just joyriding, just to take a look at the devastation, motoring around to see what's going on. This is neither the time nor the place for that kind of irresponsibility. Hello, you're on WA2. The troops have arrived at Logan International Airport. The governor, Michael Dukakis, was there to greet them, along with WBZ's Darrell Gould. Darrell Gould hitched a ride in an Army Jeep to get over there to cover it for us. He since had to go back to the MDC headquarters, where the governor has set up his headquarters. We'll be getting a report from Darrell very shortly. But immediately, the troops were dispatched to Revere, to Route 128, and to Scituate in an effort to dig them out and help them. Meanwhile, Boston Edison doing pretty well all of a sudden in recovering power tonight. Carol Tyler has more for us.
By 6:17 p.m., we had restored power to those customers in downtown Boston who were affected by the problems we had in the switchyard at K Street Station. We still are experiencing isolated small outages throughout the system, and most of the problems in dealing with these outages is access, where the travel is still bad and we're having to plow our way to some of the problems. In addition to that, we are experiencing some problems with our steam heat customers, but we are working on that and we'll be working on it throughout the night.
There it is, a good word from Boston Edison that most of the power is back now in the city of Boston. Now, the two hardest hit areas in the state have to be Scituate and Revere. We have reports tonight from both Harry Sabbath and from Don Banning. As the day has wore on, it has become more apparent just how massive the destruction and damage is in Scituate. The townspeople, with the help of the National Guard, have been making a valiant effort to bounce back from this devastating storm, but it's going to be many weeks before Scituate returns to anything that might be considered normal. Town Selectman Carl Pipe says things are looking just a little bit better than they were earlier in the day.
The only thing I can say is, with the good weather that we've got now, things are getting a little less hectic around here. We're able to move at a more uniform pace. What we're trying to do is keep the areas that are flooded and have had such devastation blocked off, because we're getting a lot of people want to come around sightseeing, and we've got to keep these people out of those areas because there are still gas leaks, water leaks. I doubt if there are any, live wires at this stage. We still have, yes, I was just told we still have some live wires that have not been disconnected.
Selectman Pipe says there are still some people stranded in the Hummerock section of Scituate, and he says 3 or 4 people remain unaccounted for.
Well, again, what we're hoping is that, these are people who may be holed up somewhere in these houses that just haven't been able to come out and get to the mainland yet. So, as far as you know, 3 or 4 unaccounted for, but they may be safe somewhere. Right.
As I said earlier, the people of Scituate are just beginning to realize how serious and extensive the damage and destruction is in their town. One resident, Paul Hickman, gives us this eyewitness account of the devastation in just one section of Scituate.
I was just down Conway section of Scituate between 2nd Cliff and 3rd Cliff, and there's at least 15 to 20 houses completely flattened. Townway no longer exists. It's under about 10 feet of huge boulders, sand. There was maybe 2 or 3 houses left standing, and they were mostly gutted. And there's a couple of fishing trawlers up in the parking lot, some lobster boats. There's boats on the marshland washed right out of a boatyard, still on their cradles. And there's a section of road going over from 2nd Cliff to 1st Cliff that's just covered with icebergs and sand and boulders, so you can't drive through over to 1st Cliff where the Coast Guard station is.
I also spoke with Dan Malinowski, who owns the Villa Gardens restaurant in downtown Scituate. He was able to describe for us the damage along Scituate Harbor and the center of town.
Scituate Playhouse completely flooded out. Welch Company lumber completely lost, floating around all over the harbor. The Scituate Ceramic Shop underwater. Boats in the parking lot, 40-foot lobster boat, 50-foot gill net boat, sitting in the parking lot, Coast Guard boat sitting behind a restaurant.
Obviously, millions and millions of dollars of damage in Scituate, and town officials and the town people are eagerly awaiting the help that the federal troops will be bringing along to that town shortly. The Red Cross Emergency Shelter is still operating at Scituate High School, but more and more people are now leaving the shelter and they're going to the homes of friends and relatives. By tonight, officials figure that only 50 or so will be at the Scituate Emergency Shelter. Many Scituate residents responded to an appeal to take in the evacuees if they had available space. And it's obvious that though Scituate is still reeling from the storm's impact, the people are fighting back with all they've got. Harry Savas, WBZ News.
Now it's mostly snow removal facing Revere officials. According to those I've talked to, most of those in serious trouble because of floodwaters have been removed from their waterfront homes. A short while ago, I spoke with Revere Mayor George Coletta.
Since the contingent of Army personnel came in from Fort Devens sometime around 2:30 this morning and went into active participation in and around 6:30 this morning, we'll set up a dual-type strategy in terms of evacuation and snow fighting. We are still continuing our evacuation procedures, taking out people and rescuing people from their plight in the lowland areas of the community. And I suspect that starting out this morning, we probably still had in around 300 to 400 to 500 more people to actually rescue and bring in. So we're continuing with that, and it seems like it's coming along quite well. The Army personnel are participating extremely in incredible fashion, so we're pleased that they are supporting us and helping us. We also had access to the MDC amphibious type vehicle this morning, so we were happy about that also, getting that back again in good working order.
The mayor says there are people, especially the elderly, who are unable to get food and those whose homes are getting cold. So the evacuation will, for the most part, shift from those who were in danger of losing their lives because of the extremely high tide to those who are snowbound. About 100 Army troops from Fort Devens are still here. They arrived early this morning. With them, they have ambulances, trucks, some of the biggest snow removal equipment I've ever seen. A helicopter arrived a short time ago from Devon. Officials are flying over Revere to plot their attack against the snow. In addition, more troops and equipment are expected in a couple of hours from Fort Dix, New Jersey. They will give the Fort Devens men and local officials a break. Some of these people have been working non-stop since Monday afternoon. Meanwhile, A couple of thousand, maybe 3,000, will be spending the night once again at Revere High School. Don Batting, WBAZ News, in Revere.
Thank you, Don, and thank you, Harry, for concise reports. Meanwhile,
we're going to go ahead and write the number up, protect the number, write the person up, and then we'll decide what's going to happen a little bit later. In a few days, getting together with the state police, and some action will be taken against them.
Obviously, if they have a valid reason for being a medical emergency type thing, then we're letting them pass through. Number two, we have 128 shut off completely to traffic, so as not to foul up the snow removal operation and the towing operation. And number three, basically what the officers are doing is they're either citing them or taking enough information to make out a criminal summons later on.
Snow removal efforts are being hampered by cars on the road, so get your cars off the road.
And with the removal of the cars, trucks, and buses that have been blocking Route 9 from Fayetteville all the way back to Westboro.
Right now, the crews are out there working very diligently, attempting to clean up the mess. They expect it to be cleaned up somewhat close to midnight tonight.
For emergency traffic that might want to use the area, I understand that Route 9 westbound is open for emergency travel only.
Yes, that is correct, for emergency travel only.
And how about eastbound? Is it still blocked off?
Yes, it is.
What's the story of the people of Data General, those 300 people who have been up there since Monday night?
People at Data General right now, all of our units, all available emergency units are out and attempting to transfer and transport people to their various surrounding towns and what have you. We have full efforts out on the road right now, and we're in the midst of transporting those people. So far, we're pretty well set on that situation.
Okay, are there any other situations in Southborough that are worth noting?
No, mostly everything is clearing out slowly but surely. The only thing is we still have a few people left at Bay School, a few people left at St. Mark's, and we're still working on Data General, but the situation should be resolved very shortly.
That's part of those 1,200 people that you rescued with snowmobiles and everything else from Route 9, which became a big parking lot Monday night in the blizzard with everybody stopped down there.
That's correct. We've had very cooperative efforts with all of our volunteers, emergency service units, snowmobilers, and surrounding town police officers.
Well, congratulations to you for doing a great job through the whole thing.
Thank you.
Okay, Auxiliary Police Sergeant Mickey Lanzer.
Continues to improve this morning, but there is still a way to go.
Pretty much squared away as far as the westbound lane, but the eastbound lane is still pulling cars. I think they got about between 25 and 50 cars still left in there. But still, Route 9 is closed to all, private or people out for riding around. It's just used for emergency vehicles right now.
Okay, so you expect today then it'll be cleared out?
Yes, I hope so. At least by, tonight.
Southborough Police Officer Keller tells GTR News stranded trucks are also being removed, and those people stranded at Data General are slowly being brought home. Southborough Selectman Chairman Louis Bartolini tells GTR News success of Southborough's rescue efforts and storm cleanup in general cannot be attributed to any one group.
It's a combined effort of all the departments. I'm talking civil defense, highway, fire, all our volunteers, the headmasters of our private schools set all these people up and made accommodations for them. They got blankets for them and moving all the traffic and getting the people off.
And Natick Selectman Chairman Dan O'Leary says Natick Department of Public Works crews couldn't have done a better job.
Department, something hard to come by these days. Clear, storm-free weather should be with us right through the weekend. Days should be sunny with light winds, afternoon temperatures reaching about 28 to 32. Nights will be quite cold with readings dropping below 10 in the suburbs and to 15 in the city. For HDH AccuWeather, this is meteorologist Elliot Abrams.
The National Guard and MDC police, and they just called and they are not fooling. No longer are they going to stop the cars of the curious and just say, I'm sorry. They are going to have to get out. They will be ticketed, and they are trying for the toughest fines that they can get in those areas. This is an absolute emergency where the MDC, the National Guard, I think you heard the National Guard yesterday, is in the water trying to pull people out there. The curiosity factor is not going to help. Please stay off the roads today and don't drive. Now,
at the top of the hill in Southborough, it's the first of the lights after you get by the Terra, and from there, Route 9 is totally closed you all, but emergency traffic all the way up to the Westboro line. They're still trying to haul cars out of there. We still have people stranded at Data General in Southboro. Also, the Route 128 is closed in most areas. But in Boston, Mayor White has gone crazy because they have such a situation in there. Boston is a mess normally on a normal workday week. When the storm hit January 20th, which was almost half as much snow as we got in this storm, Boston was like closed down. In this storm, Boston is out of business. And they've had power failures in there and all kinds of other things. They fear more deaths now in Boston and around. The crews continue digging out abandoned cars and snowbound roads. 17 dead so far. But in Boston, they have roadblocks set up around the city to check for violators. They're not letting anybody in or out of the city of Boston except emergency essential services, and people caught can face fines of up to $500 a year in jail. I guess they're ready in the newsroom. We'll get
is still paralyzed. A lot of people were walking around the city streets yesterday, and unfortunately, many drivers were ignoring the state of emergency order and were driving around, making it tough for the snowplows to get through. Well, today, anybody driving around who's not supposed to will be dealt with harshly. Here's Officer Skip Holliday, the Boston Police Department.
As of 6 a.m. Thursday, February 9th, no motorists will be allowed to operate their vehicle in the city of Boston. This order will be strictly enforced with the exception of those citizens who must operate their vehicles for emergency reasons. The penalty for this infraction is a $500 fine or 1 year in jail.
You heard him. They're not kidding. You will be arrested if you're illegally driving around the city. As for the current road conditions around Greater Boston, here's Mike Goldman of the MDC.
The road systems remain in poor condition in many spots. In certain areas, we've been able to open up emergency lane traffic. In other areas, we have not been able to get in at all. For example, the underpass near the Coke plant on Memorial Drive is filled with snow, and no machine in the world is going to get it cleared out, which hampers our efforts to clear up Memorial Drive. The key thing for people to remember who are at home is that the state of emergency continues to exist, that anybody who is on a roadway without permission will be turned back either by state or MDC or National Guard people, that although it may look in your specific area or your roadway that things are clear, things are in very bad shape, continue to be, will be throughout the day, and your best bet is to stay home, to enjoy your neighbors, to help out each other, and give us a chance to work on the roadways.
Crackdown on scofflaws, joyriders, begins in earnest today.
Chapter 33 of the, Chapter 33, Section 13.5 in the Mass General Laws. I guess that's the one, the chapter and section that comes under, and I know that the year in jail, $500 fine, that's what they're saying here now, and it's just common sense, right? I mean, they certainly can't lock everybody up, right? I think they're just advising people as a deterrent, and the offices aren't open to arrest people.
State Police Sergeant Walsh tells GTR News if the situation gets out of hand, they will begin imposing the heavy fine. Today is another bank holiday. Schools, banks, and businesses are closed. South Middlesex REACT spokesman JFL says his group continues to work in conjunction with area disaster officials.
South Middlesex areas, we're looking for citizens band radio operators to utilize monitoring efforts on emergency channel 9. They can call the following telephone number, 877-8295. Also elsewhere, we understand there is going to be a meeting of the commissioners on the Route 128 situation, and everybody who has a car on Route 128 is asked to call after 9 o'clock to 727-4800. That is 727-4800. After 9 o'clock, there'll be a ruling on what they're going to do with the vehicles on 128. If your vehicle is there, you should understand that what they're doing currently is they're taking the cars off the ramps of 128, sending them into 128 itself, and they're alternating the cars from the north to the south and south to the north so they can do a slow but quick plow situation.
REACT CB is also looking for trucks with plows. The Southboro Route 9 situation continues to improve. Southboro Police tell GTR News there's still a way to go.
Pretty much squared away as far as the westbound lane, but the eastbound lane is still pulling cars. I think they got about between 25 and 50 cars still left in there. But still, Route 9 is closed to all, private or people out for riding around. It's just used for emergency vehicles right now.
Okay, so you expect today then it'll be cleared out?
Yes, I hope so. At least by, tonight.
Southborough Police Officer Keller tells GTR News the stranded trucks are also being removed, and those people stranded at Data General are slowly being taken home. Southborough
Back from the road. Also, the roadways in some area that parallel to the beach area are completely gone, completely washed away. And up there by Hull, we have a similar situation. A lot of houses are demolished. Of course, some of these apparently are summer residences, and I assume a lot of the owners possibly listening now will probably try and get down here, and I'm sure there'll be lots of tears of anguish and cries of anguish when they see this mess they have facing them. The situation further up in the downtown area, talking about road conditions, from what I've seen so far, when and if they lift the van, the Mass Pike perhaps is the best roadway that I've seen around the Boston area. The Mystic Bridge, of course, being a private entity in itself, is a well cleared up section of road. And I was out there in 128 by Route 138. The cleanup operation there is progressing much slower than up at the other end by Great Plains Avenue. There's a quarter mile of cars have been removed from the snowbanks and placed on both sides of the road at that particular point. Further up by Route 1, they have plowed some of the road between the batch of cars that are stalled out. However, up there by Great Plains Avenue, they're working on it from both ends. They're working on it from a quarter mile standpoint down from Great Plains Avenue. They've cut a narrow area through the median strip, and they're placing cars on both sides of that roadway. In other words, they'll be crossing over to the southbound, or rather the northbound side. From the southbound side, they're placing cars on the right-hand side. And up there by Highland Avenue, they have huge Army wreckers working up at that end, and trucks towing the vehicles out of the way. So they are making better progress up at that end. And Joe Green from the Music Copter.
All right, Joe, very graphic report, thank you. Again, you will not be allowed to retrieve a stranded car from 128, and there is no travel permitted on 128.
But patrols are assembled periodically. Convoys have left the airport heading right for the stricken areas.
An Army official tells HDH News that they're having a devil of a time clearing Route 128 right now.
I guess probably the principal difficulty has been encountered there with the traffic tie-up on Route 128. It's been bumper-to-bumper traffic for about 4 or 5 miles, and this is 2-lane bumper-to-bumper, and it's all snowed in, so it takes a lengthy period of time for the bucket loaders to dig the snow away and the wreckers to come in and remove the vehicles one at a time.
That's Major Walter Birchfield, who came up from Fort Bragg, North Carolina. The Army troops are out on 128, also in Revere and Hull and New Bedford. Hundreds of millions in damage been done in Scituate, Hull, and Revere. Hundreds of homes been destroyed or heavily damaged. Things reported to be going smoothly in shelters in Revere and Scituate this morning. They're getting food and other necessities. Other news in brief this morning, a 3-alarm fire heavily damaged a 3-decker Dorchester this morning. It was Dorchester Ave and Greenwich Street. Nobody was seriously injured. Red Cross says it badly needs blood donors. The main Red Cross Center is open across from Fenway Park here in the city. Also, a bloodmobile been set up at Quincy House at Harvard University. Also at Mount Auburn and Plimpton Streets. Talking about Harvard University, it is shut down for the first time in its 340-year history. State House required to meet for the state constitution here in the Commonwealth convened for exactly 1 minute Wednesday. Then it adjourned. 20 of the 240 House members, the legislators, managed to show up. And California is racing for its 5th rainstorm in the past few weeks. Dry reservoirs and water rationing are a thing of the past out there on the West Coast as the northern part of the state contends with flood levels along its rivers. And they're getting ice in the south this morning. So the entire country is suffering for another severe winter, the winter of 1978. And do you realize it's only about half over? That's right. In sports, Celtics last night lost a game after winning 4 in a row. They lost to the Kansas City Kings by a score of 104-100. Bruins supposed to be in Detroit tonight. They're going to have troubles apparently getting the hockey players out of the Boston suburbs with this state of emergency remaining in effect. HDH News time is 5 after 9 o'clock.
Of Malden with the National Guard unit down there who've been doing the evacuation work, getting the people out of their flooded homes in the Beachmont section of Revere. Lieutenant John Erkler of Malden of the Massachusetts National Guard.
We're doing very well so far. We've completed almost all the extractions, and now we're just assisting with the emergency cases.
Do you have any more families down in the Beachmont area that the National Guard will have to go in and get out of their flooded homes today?
We have most of the families out. What we have are a few elderly people who really don't want to leave their homes, and we are working with the Revere Police and trying to persuade them to come up here.
Now, what is the problem getting into those homes for the National Guard?
Severely high waters, and some of it is over the limits of our capabilities as far as the vehicles we originally came in here with. We do have 2 amphibious vehicles down in that area working, and now we have some heavy equipment down there that can get through the water.
Well, I know yesterday another lieutenant of the Guard reported to me that in the earlier operations, some of your men even jumped into the water up to their armpits to push boats loaded with people out of the flooded area. Is it that serious still?
Somewhat. We still have people jumping in the water where we don't have the amphibious vehicles close by. Our people are just moving through the water to get primarily the children out.
Well, I guess you know that could be dangerous with the temperature of the water. Are you able to get your own people who have been subjected to those water conditions taken care of all right?
Yes, sir. As soon as those people enter the water, the first priority after getting any evacuees out is to get those people back here and into warm, dry clothes and have them inspected by the medical people.
Do you think that operation will be concluded today?
Hopefully. We're looking pretty good right now, and we don't have too many incoming calls, so we're kind of hoping that most of the evacuation will be completed sometime late this afternoon.
That was Lieutenant John Urkel.
Reassuring and threatening. Reassuring because there are recorded instances of nearly all the things that have happened here this winter. Threatening because they can happen again. Destruction of the shoreline by massive waves, blinding blizzards, fearsome winds, and the like were all observed and written about even in colonial times. When we see the spectacular pictures or hear the unfolding of human tragedy in the coverage of storms like this, one is left stunned, speechless. Those of us fortunate enough to have escaped the worst effects all realized that but for a few miles or minutes, we might have been in similar dire straits. And yet there's another side to this. An age of cynicism and supposed lack of human values and compassion. The individual stories about saving lives, volunteering to help with no promise of pay, and just the spirit of companionship in the face of adversity are all things that are unmistakable. It's sad that it takes a calamity of this magnitude for these things that are good to come to the forefront, but we can feel some measure of pride that those qualities we talk about but don't always practice do in fact exist. These feelings and qualities may flee into the shadows once again as the snows melt and spring arrives, but this observer cannot help but be optimistic in the light of the thousands of good things people are doing for one another in the face of nature's onslaught. This is AccuWeather meteorologist Elliot Abram.
But we have a very long way to go. Most of our secondary roads still are impassable. Many of our neighborhoods are impassable. I've talked with some mayors who tell me that in their communities it may take as much as a week or more to get back to anything reasonably near normal. So that the state of emergency will continue in effect through at least midnight on Friday with some significant changes. To begin with, in addition to the exemption that we granted last night to communities in western Massachusetts, all of Barnstable County will now be exempt from the state of emergency. Approximately 40 communities in central Massachusetts, including Worcester and Framingham, will be exempt. And any other community whose mayor or board of selectmen would like to be exempted from the state of emergency should get in touch with Bob Cunningham, our civil defense director, to discuss it with him. On the other hand, we cannot guarantee the lifting of such an exemption for obvious reasons, because in many cases we have communities which may believe internally that they are capable of functioning now at a reasonably close to normal level, but in fact they are in a region that is in serious trouble, and we simply cannot have people out in their cars and moving around and crossing community lines as inevitably they will. So that with the exception of those central Massachusetts communities, Barnstable County, and other communities which are exempted by specific order of the Civil Defense Director, the state of emergency will continue in effect. Now, supermarkets and drugstores will remain open, and they will be exempted from the blue laws on Sunday. So the supermarkets will be open on Sunday. People will be able to purchase food and supplies at them, and that will be the situation statewide. We would like to, and Secretary Barry has asked me to encourage our supermarket chains to see if they can't make deliveries to these supermarkets,
between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. That is between 10 at night and 6 in the morning. For obvious reasons, because then those deliveries can be made and they will not conflict with our snow removal efforts and the other things that are going on during the course of daily hours.
Bobby Vinton will not be seen tonight, so that we may bring you the following special presentation.
Well, I had an old beach blanket in my trunk. Wrapped myself up in that for a while. And I'd run my engine about, 5 minutes every hour. That's about all I'd dare with the exhaust fumes and everything else. The other night, there were a few snowmobiles around, but I couldn't get their attention. And then this morning, I tried to walk out, but I just couldn't make it.
The whole house was shaking, and the water started coming in. When I left, there was about a foot of water in the house. I had to get out. I thought the place was going to come down.
I stayed Monday night till about 6:30, and then the Oceanside door blew in, and then when I was trying to reinforce that, picture windows blew in, so I grabbed my kids and I had to run for my life.
The storm sprang at us Monday afternoon, the joint product of a furious coastal low and a giant Arctic high, a nor'easter that defied description. For more than a day, it would pound an inch of snow an hour with winds of hurricane force. By 11 Monday night, traffic had broken down. The city sculpted into a tortured moonscape. And sometime in the small hours, the power went out to 100,000 homes. On Tuesday morning, a winter Atlantis. Silent, buried, paralyzed, the faces of the rescuers already lined. The late few travelers tossed this way and that. And still, the snow continued. And with the snow, the wind, heaving up gigantic mounds, blowing out windows where it could, pushing our century back and back, leaving us a frozen Sahara. North and south along the coast, discomfort and inconvenience gave way to destruction and tragedy. The wind, gaining strength far out at sea, built an already high tide to a wall of water, smashing through Revere, Winthrop, Scituate, Hull, killing the few, sweeping away homes, displacing 11,000, damaging the hundreds of millions, wiping out past lives in a sweeping flood, threatening the lives of those who live on her, stranding ocean-going ships, washing away our landmarks. But we are not made to buckle to natural forces. When the wind had died and the snow had stopped, recovery was underway already. The first tentative efforts already begun as the storm still raged. The first calls for help already going out. The first responses, quick, in coming in. And as most of us waited for the storm to die, some of us were already fighting back. An effort that would grow from a handful to an all-out assault on the aftermath. This is that story. From those who were there, from the first forecast to the latest situation report, now, at this moment. From the shattered beach towns to the buried highways to the governor's command post. This is our story. We'll be back in a moment. Back in a moment after this along the north and south shores. That is a story that suburban reporter Mike Levitt has been covering ever since it first broke. Mike?
Ted, I think the first thing that's incredible here is on Monday night when the storm started to reach its peak and the tides were heading for high on the east coast of Massachusetts. No one really had an indication, the officials certainly didn't, that the tides would be as great as they ultimately were. And everyone was going under the assumption that things would happen the way they normally do. The tides would come up 1 or 2, maybe 3 or 4 feet above normal, but that would be it, and that you wouldn't have the major damage. Well, obviously, we were to find out that would not be the case. In fact, if we can see what the situation was in Revere, we'll give you an indication.
The combination of factors built those tides, Mike. Harvey will be going into them in greater detail, but it was no doubt that hurricane-force winds and a new moon had contributed.
This was the situation in Revere. We got in there first around 8 o'clock. The high tide was to come at 10 o'clock, but 2 hours before high tide, the wall of water had already come over the seawall, so that was giving people the indications of how bad this was going to be. The only way they could evacuate people from these areas were in amphibious ducts. The MDC had 2 of them. They were taken to shelters like the one at Our Lady of Lourdes Church.
Surrounded by about between 3 and 4 feet of water.
You heard how it is at this point?
No, I don't. There's no way I can get back to my home. I came up here to seek shelter. My feet are wet and I wanted to get out of the cold.
Revere Mayor George Colella immediately declared a state of emergency in that city, and it suddenly became apparent that not only was Revere affected, but were many other places. We tried on Tuesday morning to get back to Revere. We went up the Northeast Expressway. First we went the McClellan Highway and couldn't get there. We went back and tried the Northeast Expressway, and here were the ducks, which had broken down the first night and had tried to get back and couldn't make it themselves. Now Revere from the air on that Tuesday after the storm abated. The flooding was still there, people still being evacuated. In Hull on Wednesday morning, which we finally reached after about a 2-hour ride from Boston, we found extensive damage here which really hadn't been reported before. Most people up until that time were concentrating their efforts on Revere. The governor made his flight over the area, and then we were able to show you the 4th successive high tide on Wednesday, the noon high tide on Wednesday, still continuing to buffet these buildings that had been smashed before that. This was the Green Hill section of Hull, where we reported to you live on Wednesday of the extensive damage there, and we showed you what the situation was. The floods, the smashed homes, the situation there.
And the water started coming in. When I left, there was about a foot of water in the house. I went on the front porch and carried a suitcase and my dog. I was up to about my waist.
The oceanside door blew in, and then when I was trying to reinforce that, the picture windows blew in, so I grabbed my kids and I had to run for my life.
The flood tides continued to come in Hull, and by this time people were evacuated in record numbers. 2,000 of the 10,000 residents of the coastal community were in shelters at one of the Hull elementary schools. The high school was out of commission because the flooding had taken its toll there. People got around in boats. They helped out their neighbors, the ones who had stayed in their homes, by trying to bring them food and supplies. The floods were up to 3 feet, but it is important to note that the wall on the bay side held back the water from going possibly 15 feet high as it was 20 years ago. This was the Damon School on Wednesday night with a couple of hundred people there. Senator Ted Kennedy came down to visit the people. He was making a tour of the areas and talked with a couple of local residents about their problems.
No, I won't.
How are you keeping your spirits up?
Well, what am I going to cry about?
Yeah.
There's no need of crying. You do the best you can. You pray to God in heaven, that's all. Then I'll leave Hull.
On Thursday, we had a chance to head further south, knowing the situation in Hull was at least stabilized, the power continuing to come back on. We drove down to Plymouth, and we first encountered the White Horse Beach area. Now, this is an area that is particularly vulnerable to the high tides, and what we found was not only the houses smashed, but seawalls and entire sections of the coast had been washed away underneath these houses. There had been 10 feet of ground under this particular house and a seawall in front of it. This was one of the restaurants in Plymouth, and there was a 2,000-pound rock sitting in the middle of that restaurant. So it gave us some indication of the fury of the sea and just how bad the conditions were.
Mike, you worked that beat in normal times. How did you personally feel going through that devastation?
It was a shocking, it was a helpless feeling when you began to see this destruction. I've been in these areas when they have had flooding. I've seen damage from high tides, I've seen dwellings damaged, but I've never seen it like this, and no one in those communities has seen it like this. And I'm just amazed. I want to give a quick credit, if I can, for our photographers, Jimmy Patton and Richie Suskin particularly. We worked in one of our vans for 3 days and got through just about everything. I mean, there were really only a couple of times when we couldn't make it.
Thank you, Mike. On the east was the ocean and the damage it caused. On the west was Route 128. That was Steve Shepard's beat this week.
Ted, the southbound lanes of Route 128, all the way from Route 138 in Canton to Route 9 in Wellesley, came to a grinding halt on Monday evening, the first day of the storm. More than 7 miles of roadway were included in the problem. They were packed with traffic. Cars and trucks, bumper to bumper, 3 abreast, sat helplessly as the record snow continued to fall, trapping them ever more deeply. In all, more than 2,500 vehicles were entombed by the falling snow, their occupants the hapless victims of 2 trailer truck jackknifings. The snow was enough to trap some cars on any road in the Massachusetts area, but it was these 2 jackknifings, the blocking of Route 128 by semi-trailer trucks, that really caused the massive pileup on the southwestern sections of Route 128. 4-wheel drive vehicles, Jeeps with snow plows, everything that got stuck behind those trucks got stuck for good. There was no way out. At first, motorists tried to stick the situation out, but then it became clear they were going to go nowhere, and they decided to leave their cars. State police on snowshoes and ski mobiles checked occupants of cars and tried to get them away to shelters. For the most part, they were successful. Still, however, Wednesday morning, a few stragglers were being pulled from their vehicles and helped along the way. Remarkably, on Route 128, to our knowledge, no one died, although there were deaths in cars in other adjacent areas. And the reason there were no deaths on 128 was because of fine work by the State Police and National Guard. Very serious cleanup work began Tuesday, but it wasn't until Thursday when units of the 27th Combat Engineering Division came on hand to begin helping Massachusetts State DPW workers clean up 128 that any real progress was made, as bit by bit, car by car, and truck by truck, vehicles on 128 were pulled from the snowbanks and from the tombs that they had been in. Tractor-trailer trucks were a special problem. Large winches had to be brung in to spring them. Sometimes it took 20 and 30 minutes to get them clear of the roadway. And guardrails on 128 had to be cut down frequently so traffic could be shifted from bare lanes to good lanes. In all, one of the most remarkable things I've seen, today at noon, for the first time in 5 days, Route 128 was open on a limited basis.
Thank you, Steve. Gary Armstrong was everywhere, but his beat was basically the city during this storm. At all hours of the day and night you were out there, Gary, and what did you find?
Ted, the stories that were told by Steve and Mike weren't as bad in Boston. In a way, the storm was like a real-life soap opera. The people of Boston, in this case, were the protagonists, were trying to deal with a larger-than-life crisis. But like soap operas, the saga of the blizzard of '78 is measured in days.
Day 1. The storm built quickly in Boston. Despite the initial forecast and the force of the snow and wind during the first hours, no one was really prepared for what was ahead. The first indication of how bad the storm would be was visual, or rather what was not visual. In Boston, that was just about everything. Visibility in most cases was the length of your arm. In a matter of hours, life ground to a halt in the city. Businesses closed, cars were abandoned. Pedestrians struggled against swirling snow that whipped around in gusts up to 40 miles an hour in Government Center and other parts of Boston. Halfway through the first day, many people still did not realize the intensity of the storm. Many tried to make their way home despite wanting to remain where they were or to find temporary shelter. Emergency parking bans were affected in Boston, Cambridge, and several other cities and towns in the metropolitan area, as it became apparent that the snow would continue for an undetermined amount of time. By the end of the first day, major streets were completely snowbound. Cars were lost in snowbanks. Secondary roads were obliterated in the wind and fog. Walking through Boston was a hazard because the snow and the sleet ripped and slashed at your face. Day 2. The city was completely snowbound. Complicating matters, there had been a widespread power failure during the early morning hours. It left hotels, apartment buildings, and other dwellings in darkness and cut off communication about the storm's impact. Daybreak of Day 2. It was obvious that no one was going anywhere. The slow cleanup process began. But even the snowplows had rough going because of the accumulated layers of snow and ice. Abandoned cars were a major problem, but there was little police could do because getting around was equally difficult for them. Most stores were closed. Skeletal staffs were ordered at City Hall and the State House. All other employees were asked to remain at home. Schools were closed. Mass transit was pretty well bogged down, especially on the surface lines. There were still problems of power failures in parts of the city. Most major hotels were over capacity. Several had no heat. Day 3, the sun was out, and that alone was moral comfort for many. the city seemed to come partially back to life. There were people on the streets, and since most businesses were still closed, it was an impromptu holiday for many.
I think it's beautiful. I love it.
I love it. It's great.
It's beautiful. I love it.
If most driving was prohibited, and if walking was dangerous, cross-country skiers had no problems navigating the streets of Boston. Day 3 and Day 4 saw more concern about food and money to buy food. It was a week that brought out the best and worst in Bostonians. To their credit, most people obeyed emergency laws and helped others less fortunate. And as the week ended, even the most tradition-steeped folks admitted that this would be a storm to remember.
Certainly is, Gary. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ted.
And on that upbeat note, we're going to end this segment, and we'll be back with more in just a moment. Long after this crisis is over, it will be state of emergency. Governor Michael Dukakis, who is with me now, first uttered those words declaring a state of emergency shortly before 10 o'clock Monday night, Governor. And from then on, it was fight back against the snowstorm. Now, exactly, first of all, I think a lot of people are wondering what the state of emergency meant, although I'm sure we know by now, but when it will be lifted. Have you any idea on that?
Well, we're progressively lifting it, Ted, from community to community and region to region. When we've come from western Massachusetts east, we now have approximately 43 communities in the metropolitan area. There are about a dozen communities to the southwest of the metropolitan area down toward Rhode Island who have asked to be added to that list, and we will add them. And that's essentially where we are at the present time. Now, I hope, if all goes well, by Monday, we can lift it officially, but I want to emphasize that we're going to have some horrendous traffic problems on Monday, and we'll try to put together in the next 24 hours a traffic plan which will deal with what happens when we resume normal activity on Monday.
I think there's a question, at least in my mind, as to whether this current state of emergency in the affected communities extends through midnight Saturday night or midnight Sunday night.
Midnight Sunday night.
You've definitely gone ahead with that, then. All right. What has that state of emergency enabled you to do? As we take a look at some of the devastated areas, I want to turn to another matter now, the federal disaster designation. On Wednesday, we got our first look at some of the devastation and destruction. We do officially have a disaster designation now, and what's that going to mean to these people?
Well, it means for the coastal communities affected that a whole range of federal aid, loans, grants, and assistance will now come into play, both in a personal sense to help them rebuild their homes and recover their property, in an employment sense, because if they have been unemployed, there will be special aid for them, and for cities and towns and the Commonwealth, to the extent that there are public facilities, seawalls, roads, and so on that are going to be rebuilt, and obviously there is much of that in the millions of dollars.
Governor, you've seen a good deal of the state from a different point of view this week. What is your emotional reaction to this kind of devastation? What does it make you want to do?
Well, when I first looked at that scene down along the coast, particularly on the South Shore, it wasn't that Revere wasn't bad. Revere was terrible, but Revere, by the time I got up over it, was frozen. But to see those houses piled like doll houses on their sides, to see houses tipped into the ocean in Holland and Scituate, to see an area in Scituate which I spent weeks in as a kid when I was 3 or 4 up in North Scituate, looking like a pile of kindling, was almost unbelievable. It was really tough to believe that it was happening down below you. The other sense that I had was that those areas were just so terribly vulnerable. You don't get that sense when you're on the ground, but when you look down on it...
Thank you very much, Governor. That's right. I'm most grateful. Well, a storm such as this one gives our meteorologists a chance to test their skills. Harvey Leonard was on duty Friday and Saturday, and as you're about to see, he forecast a major storm brewing.
What's going to happen is a tremendous amount of energy in high levels of the atmosphere pouring down to the southeast will really enhance the development of this storm, and that's the one that we expect to come up the coast in a fashion something like that. With all the cold air that's over us now, unquestionably the bulk of this storm has to be in the form of snow. We think it's going to be a big one of the biggest of the winter. The only way we can see being wrong is if this storm takes a radical turn left, then perhaps some warm air from the ocean would come in. Even if that happens, which I rate a long shot, we'd have to have an extended period of snow first.
That was you on Saturday night, Harvey, and you've been here virtually ever since, forecasting the progress of the storm and giving us the aftermath. What are the chances of the particular combination of circumstances that caused this happening again?
I don't think there's a strong chance, Ted, that we'll ever see anything like that again, or perhaps our families either, because you had not only hurricane-force winds, picture that, without the snow you would have effectively had a hurricane for a while, and then you had a record amount of snow. Sometime in our lives we may see a hurricane during the summer months, and sometime we may see almost as much snow, but together I think the chances are almost impossible.
What about the danger of flooding during a thaw? We now have, I would assume, about 50 inches of snow on the ground in some places, counting the January storm.
Some places. Well, if you remember, that's important. There are two reasons why we might get away in good shape, two reasons to be optimistic. First of all, back on the January storm, when we had almost as much snow on the ground as now, within a week we had a lot of rain, a heavy rainstorm. But because we were able to forecast it ahead of time, many of the storm drains were freed, and there were not too many major problems. The other thing is, think of Buffalo last winter. They had more snow on the ground than we had, and everybody thought they'd have flooding, but the winter broke, they had warm weather with some sun, not too many storms, and the melt was gentle. So that's the thing to hope for, a gentle melt. But our problem is that we're still in a vulnerable storm track and may get more in the way of storminess.
What about the immediate future, Harvey?
The next 3 days will be simple. It'll be cold and dry. There really won't be much in the way of a thaw, but also there's going to be no storms. But we do have to watch something very closely. There is a possibility of an important storm Monday night or Tuesday, just a possibility at this point.
Very briefly, when we talked about this earlier, you said something about a double center to the storm. One near the surface and the other about 18,000 feet up. Could you explain that?
Well, that was the first tip-off. One thing we look for in a real classic case, which that was, we see a pocket of cold air dropping down from high levels in the atmosphere, and that usually triggers off a storm development. This one dropped from the Great Lakes toward the Maryland coast, a storm formed off Georgia, and then the two met, combined off the Jersey coast. We had all of the storms deepening in intensity, and then the storm just sat there for a while, and we continued to get it.
Now, I know you only go by what you see, Harvey, but very briefly, if you had a chance to forecast clear and shining or one of these, which would you take?
I take clear and shining because of the devastation that occurred, for sure.
Thank you, Harvey. We'll be back with some final notes in just a moment. The fight, she will win the early rounds, and that all our efforts to control our environment must inevitably fall short. We've learned also that society is a pretty recent experiment, that Commonwealth Avenue at 5 a.m. on the morning of a blizzard with a power blackout can be frightening. The molds are broken, the systems are down, titles and offices, wealth and age and color and name are gone. But we've also learned that what we mostly do is help each other out. We went on living quietly, looking in on the neighbor just in case, and standing in line at a store that we walk to on foot, and buying an item or two, so as to leave something for the next guy and his need. Yesterday, somebody called this station to complain that I was making light of the looting in several parts of Boston. We mentioned it, but we did not dwell on it. The story this time was not the 300, but the 3 million of us who went about our daily lives, looked in on that neighbor, and did what we could for ourselves and for our families. I think it was a good moment. And I think that's something to remember. Till the next time. I'm Ted O'Brien. Good evening.